Kids like you don't write papers like this, Mr. Whitman said, shoving the stapled pages back across the desk so hard they slid off and hit the floor. His words were soft, like he was trying to sound kind, but they cut worse than if he had yelled. The whole class went quiet. A couple of rich white kids in the front row looked down at their shoes. Somebody in the back sucked in a breath. Jaden just stared at the paper on the tile, the big red F at the top bleeding through to the second page. The words plagiarism, 0 underlined 3 times. His ears rang. "What you mean, kids like me?" he asked, his voice coming out slower than it felt inside. Mr. Whitman adjusted his fancy watch, the one that always flashed in the light, and gave a little shrug. "You know what I mean, Jaden," he said. "Your writing has never sounded like this. The vocabulary, the structure, it doesn't match your past work, and my software confirms it. You copied. I have to protect academic honesty." Jaden bent down on stiff legs and picked up the paper with shaking fingers. "I didn't copy nothing," he said. "I worked on that all month. I missed practice for this. Coach gonna kill me when he sees this grade." Mr. Whitman sighed like he was tired of the whole thing already. "Actions have consequences," he said. "This project was 50% of your grade. You failed it, so you failed the class. Maybe next time you'll do your own work instead of trying to take the easy way out." The easy way out, Jaden thought, feeling his chest burn. He had never worked so hard on anything in his life. He wanted to say that, wanted to scream it, but the words jammed in his throat as the bell rang, and everyone started to move, brushing past him like he wasn't even there. The hallways of Northridge High felt wrong as he walked through them, like he was in someone else's movie. Posters for college fairs and ski trips hung on the walls. Faces of smiling kids who never had to worry about power bills kept smiling down at him. Jaden moved in a blur, past the trophy case, past kids talking about weekend plans at the lake house, past a group of boys laughing loud in designer hoodies that cost more than his grandma's rent. Every step, his mind replayed the same lines. "You failed. You cheated. Kids like you." Outside, the parking lot was filled with shiny cars and big SUVs. Jaden slipped past them and headed to the bus stop, hugging his backpack close. The cold Cincinnati wind cut through his thin jacket, but he barely felt it. When he finally reached the small brick house on the east side, the one with the chipped blue paint and the front steps that leaned just a bit to the left, he stood on the porch for a long second with his hand on the doorknob, trying to push the lump in his throat back down. "That you, baby?" Grandma Rosa called from inside, her voice warm and strong like always. The smell of chicken and rice and collard greens floated through the air, the same smell that had meant safety his whole life. He walked into the kitchen and dropped his backpack in the corner. Rosa stood at the stove in her faded pink housecoat, her gray hair wrapped in a scarf, stirring a pot like it owed her money. "Hey," he said, keeping his eyes on the floor. She turned, reading his face in 1 second, like only she could. "What happened?" she asked, wiping her hands on a towel. "Don't tell me nothing. Just show me." Jaden pulled the paper out of his bag, the red F looking even bigger under the bright kitchen light. He laid it on the table and backed away like it might bite him. For a moment, Grandma just stared. Then she pulled out her reading glasses from the pocket of her housecoat, slid them on, and sat down slow. The only sound in the room was the clock ticking on the wall and the soft bubble of the collards on the stove. "Rosa, read every line of Mr. Whitman's comments," her finger moving down the margin, her lips pressed tight. "This paper is above your ability," she read out loud. "Significant overlap with online source. Work appears to be copied. 0. The words "kids like you" weren't on the page, but she heard them anyway. Her jaw clenched as she turned to the last page where Mr. Whitman had scribbled, "See me after school to discuss. Parent-guardian may schedule conference with front office." She took off her glasses and stared at her grandson. "JJ," she said, using the name from when he was small. "Look at me." He lifted his eyes. They were wet and angry and tired all at once. "Did you steal this paper?" she asked, slow and clear. "Tell me the straight truth." He shook his head hard. "No, ma'am," he said. "I wrote every word. Remember how I was at the library with Ms. Kim till closing? Remember how I read those old books you got from that box in the closet? Those were about Granddad's unit. I stayed up till like 3 almost every night. My hand still hurts from writing notes." A tiny smile flickered at the corner of Rosa's mouth, not from joy, but from knowing. "That's right," she said. "I do remember. I remember hearing that pen scratching at 1 in the morning when I got up to use the bathroom." She put her glasses back on and scanned the pages again, slower now. The paper was about black soldiers from their own neighborhood who had fought in Vietnam and came home to no welcome. About one in particular, James Carter, who just happened to be carved into her heart. She saw her husband's story there, laid out in her grandson's words, thick with pain and pride. "Okay," she said finally, standing up. "Tomorrow morning, we're going to see this Mr. Rich teacher, who think my grandson is a thief." Jaden winced. "Grandma, please don't make a scene," he said. "He already think I'm some ghetto kid trying to play the system." Rosa snorted, turning down the stove. "Baby, I was making scenes before that man was out of short pants," she said. "You did the work. I watched you. So now we gonna make him see it too." The next day, Northridge High's front office smelled like hand sanitizer and expensive perfume. Rosa walked in wearing her Sunday dress and her good black shoes, her head held high. Jaden followed behind in his school hoodie, his stomach doing flips. He noticed how the secretary's smile changed when she saw his grandma's dark skin and simple purse instead of a designer bag. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her voice too sweet. "Yes, ma'am, you can," Rosa said, sliding the conference slip across the counter. "We're here to see Mr. Whitman about my grandson's grade. 10 o'clock. The secretary glanced at the paper, then at the clock. "He's very busy," she said, "but I'll see if he can squeeze you in." Rosa's eyebrows rose. "They already scheduled us," she said. "We ain't no squeeze." Before the woman could answer, the principal, Mr. Langley, stepped into the hall. He was a tall white man with silver hair and a smile he used a lot at school board meetings. "Ah, Ms. Carter and Jaden," he said. "Right this way." They followed him down the hall to a small meeting room. Mr. Whitman was already there, sitting at the head of the table with a folder in front of him and that same watch shining on his wrist. The guidance counselor, Ms. Alvarez, sat to one side with a notebook, her brown eyes kind but worried. "Thanks for coming in," Mr. Whitman said, like he was doing them a favor. "We wanted to address this concern quickly." Rosa took the chair directly across from him. "The concern is that you called my grandson a cheater," she said. "So yes, we need to address that quick." Mr. Whitman cleared his throat and opened the folder. "This isn't personal," he said, sliding a color printout across to them. Jaden turned in a paper that was far beyond his usual level, and when I ran it through our plagiarism checker, it lit up red, as you can see here. There's a 40% match with an article on a local history website about black veterans from the Eastwood neighborhood. Same order of facts, similar phrases. I can't ignore that. Rosa took the printout. At the bottom of the highlighted article was a small line in tiny letters, adapted from the Eastwood Oral History Project. R.L. Carter, et al. Her breath caught for just a second. R.L. Carter, her old name? Before she was just Grandma Rosa. She blinked, setting the paper down like nothing had happened. "And you don't think maybe he found that article because he was looking up his own people?" she asked, her voice even. "You don't think maybe it's possible that a boy from Eastwood could write good about Eastwood?" Mr. Whitman folded his hands. "Mrs. Carter, I have to be fair to all my students," he said. "If I let this slide, what does that tell the others?" I gave Jaden a chance to redo the assignment for partial credit, but he refused. Jaden's head snapped up. You said I had to admit I cheated first, he said. I'm not gonna lie about myself just to help your grade book. On the way home, the city looked different again, like someone had turned the color down. Jaden sat on the bus, staring out the window, watching the nice houses near school give way to smaller ones with bars on the windows. Then to the tired apartment blocks of Eastwood. Rosa held the folder with the red F and the printout in her lap, her fingers tapping a slow rhythm on the cardboard, like she was counting something in her head. When they got off at their stop, she didn't turn toward their house right away. Instead, she headed for the little corner store, where Mr. Lee still sold penny candy that did not cost a penny anymore. You hungry? She asked. Jaden shook his head. His stomach was a tight rock. I'm good. She bought a pack of his favorite lemon cookies anyway, and shoved them in his hand. Eat, she said. Ain't no use fighting on an empty stomach. At home, she went straight to the hall closet, the one nobody ever touched because it was full of old boxes and coats that smelled like mothballs. Jaden watched, confused. Grandma, what are you doing? He asked. She pulled out a step stool and climbed up, moving slow but sure. Looking for something, she said. Something I thought I was done with. She dragged down a dusty storage box and set it on the coffee table. Written on the side in black marker were the words, Rosa L. Carter School Stuff. For the first time since the meeting, Jaden forgot to feel bad. I thought you only finished high school, he said. You always said you never went to college 'cause you had mom too young. Rosa gave a short laugh. That's the story I let folks believe, she said. Truth is longer. She opened the box. Inside were neat stacks of old folders, a thin-bound booklet with the title Eastwood Oral History Project, 1998, and a worn faculty ID badge with her picture on it and the words Pine Ridge College History Department. Jaden blinked. Grandma, he whispered. You was a teacher. She nodded, eyes shining a little but steady. Associate professor, she said. Black history. I taught a whole lot of young folks who went on to wear suits like that man we met today. When your mama got sick, I left all that and came here to raise you. I don't regret that, but I sure didn't forget who I was. She opened the booklet and flipped to a page with a black and white photo of a young man in uniform. James Carter? Under it, paragraphs of words that felt like home. Many of the sentences were almost the same as the ones in Jaden's paper. At the bottom of the page, interview conducted by R. Louise Carter, Rosa's full name. She walked over to the old bookshelf and pulled down a shoebox from the top. Inside lay cassette tapes with dates written in faded pen. This right here, she said, holding one up, is your granddaddy telling these stories in our living room in '97. I taped him myself. The college put them into that book. Some grad student must have put the same stuff online later. So when that rich teacher's computer said you matched the article, it didn't know both of y'all was matching me. They spread everything out on the coffee table like pieces of a puzzle. The booklet, the article printout, Jaden's handwritten drafts with eraser smudges all over them. His library checkout slips, even the note Ms. Kim from the library had written him saying, "Great job on all your research." Rosa put one of the old tapes in a beat-up player she dug from the bottom of the box. After a little static, a deep voice filled the room, rough and familiar. We came back on a Tuesday, Granddad James said on the tape. Plane landed right here in Ohio. Folks didn't clap, didn't wave flags. We just walked out like we was ghosts. Jaden's eyes widened. That exact line sat on the second page of his paper, underlined in red as too advanced for your level. He hadn't copied it from any website. He had copied it from his memory of his grandma's voice, reading those words out loud years ago, before the tape player broke the first time. So what this mean? He asked, looking at Rosa like she had turned on a light in a dark cave. It means that fool accused you of stealing our own story, she said. He accused you of stealing from yourself." She took a deep breath. "And it means he picked the wrong family to do that too." That night, instead of watching TV, they made a plan. Jaden gathered every draft he had, even the messy ones from the back of his notebook. Rosa wrote down dates, times, names. She called Ms. Alvarez and left a voicemail, asking how to file a formal appeal. Then, when the house was quiet, she sat Jaden down at the kitchen table. "Hear me now," she said. "You're gonna be tired. You're gonna want to let this go. But if you let this man lie on you, next time someone else gonna think they can do it too. We not just fixing a grade, we fixing a story. Our story." Jaden looked at the box of proof, at his grandma's serious face, at the tape player still humming soft in the background. For the first time since that red F hit his desk, he felt something like hope push up against the hurt. The next morning, Rosa walked into the school not just as somebody's grandma, but as a woman on a mission. Miss Alvarez met them outside her office, her curly hair pulled back, an extra chair already set out. "I'm glad you called," she said quietly when Mr. Langley wasn't near. "I saw the grade change in the system and it didn't sit right with me. Jaden's never been in trouble, and that paper, I read it. It was powerful." Rosa nodded and set the box on the floor with a soft thump. "We brought some things," she said. Miss Alvarez listened as they laid everything out, her eyes getting wider with each new piece. "So the article he says you copied is based on your own research from back in the day?" she asked, flipping through the booklet. "And your husband was the main voice in it?" Rosa smiled without humor. "Yes, ma'am," she said. "They put my work in small print, and his in smaller print, but it's ours all the same." Ms. Alvarez leaned back in her chair, the wheels creaking. "There's a process for grade appeals," she said. "Usually it's small stuff, like points on a quiz. But this is bigger, especially with the scholarship on the line." Jaden swallowed. The city scholarship he was up for, the one for first-gen college kids, needed a B or better in AP history. An F meant game over. Ms. Alvarez tapped her pen on the desk. "There's also the equity committee," she added. "We track patterns. I can't say much, but Mr. Whitman has had complaints before. Nothing's stuck. This might—" She helped them fill out the appeal form, attaching copies of the drafts and Rosa's old booklet. She took a photo of the cassette label with her phone. "I'll request a hearing with the district review team," she said. "They'll call you with a date. And Rosa," she added, using her first name like they were on the same side now, "don't back down. You'd be surprised how often people just let this stuff slide." As they left the office, they passed Mr. Whitman in the hall. He wore a neat blazer and held a coffee from the expensive shop downtown, the kind Jaden had only tasted once when a friend bought him a cup. A set of car keys with a little silver logo swung from his finger. "Mrs. Carter," he said, cool as the marble floor, "I hope you understand this isn't personal. I'm simply holding your grandson to the same standard as my other students." Rosa looked him up and down, taking in the pressed shirt, the smooth hair, the smell of cologne. "Baby, if you were holding him to the same standard, we wouldn't be standing here," she said. "And don't worry. The part that is personal, that's between you and your conscience." His jaw tightened just enough to show he heard her. As he walked away, Jaden noticed the way some kids waved to him, how he joked with a tall boy about meeting up at the country club over spring break. Rich teacher, rich friends, rich life. For the first time, Jaden wondered what Mr. Whitman would do if someone put an F on his name where the whole world could see. A week later, they sat in a small conference room at the district office, the kind of place where big decisions got made about people who didn't sit at that table. On one side were 3 adults from the district, a serious white woman with sharp glasses who was the curriculum director, a black man in a navy suit who turned out to be a principal from another school, and a tired-looking mom from the PTA with a folder full of notes. On the other side sat Mr. Whitman, with a crisp binder and a smooth lawyer in a gray suit at his elbow, and then Rosa and Jaden, with their beat-up cardboard box and a thermos of coffee. Ms. Alvarez sat behind them, not on the panel, but in the room, her presence like a hand on their backs. The curriculum director started, "We're here to review the great appeal regarding Jaden Carter in AP U.S. History," she said. "Mr. Whitman, please explain your decision." Mr. Whitman spoke in a calm, polished way, using words like rigor and integrity and subjective judgment informed by objective data. He slid out more printouts of red highlighted text and talked about how AI and the internet made cheating easier. "I don't relish failing a student," he finished, his lawyer nodding. "But if we don't protect academic standards, our diplomas mean nothing." Then it was their turn. Rosa did not use big words. She didn't need them. She started with who she was. Not as grandma, but as Dr. Rosa Louise Carter, formerly of Pine Ridge College, and laid her old faculty ID on the table like a quiet bomb. The principal from the other school sat up a little straighter. The PTA mom blinked. "I spent 15 years teaching Black history to students who mostly did not look like me," Rosa said. "I know what it is to fight for the truth in rooms like this. I also know the difference between a student who tries to take a shortcut and one who finally finds his voice." She passed around the booklet, pointing to the page with James Carter's photo and the line with her name. She set the article printout next to it, the one Mr. Whitman had used as proof. Side by side, the words lined up almost perfectly. Then she put down the old tape player and pressed play. The room filled with James Carter's voice, talking about coming home from war, about marching for rights, about the way people crossed the street instead of thanking him. The same lines Mr. Whitman had called to advance came out of that cheap plastic machine. "These interviews were done in my living room 5 years before that article went online," Rosa said. "The author thanked me in person. But some little website don't know nothing about that. It just knows my words got moved from one place to another." She laid Jaden's drafts on top, all the messy versions with arrows and cross-out. "This is what real writing looks like," she said. "It's not clean. It's not easy. It's work. My grandson did that work, starting with the stories he grew up on and building out with research from your own school library. We got logs, timestamps, witness statements from the librarian. But what hurts me most isn't that you missed all that. It's that when you finally saw something excellent with his name on it, your first thought was, he must have stolen it, and not he rose to the challenge." Silence filled the room for a long moment after she finished. The curriculum director tapped her pen, looking at the pages, the booklet, the article, back at Mr. Whitman. "Do you have anything to add?" she asked him. His lawyer cleared his throat. "With respect," the lawyer said, "even if there's a shared source, the fact remains that the overlap is significant," and Mr. Whitman, the other principal, held up a hand. "We heard you," he said. Then he turned to Jaden. "Son, why did you pick this topic?" he asked. Jaden sat up, his hands clenched in his lap. "Because nobody at school talks about men like my granddad," he said. "We learn about wars and dates and presidents, but not about the black dudes who fought and then came home to nothing. I wanted people to see them, to see him. Grandma had those tapes, so I started there. Then Ms. Kim at the library showed me how to look up more. I didn't even know there was an article at first. I just knew my granddad's voice." The PTA mom's eyes shone. "My brother served," she said quietly. The curriculum director sighed. "We'll take all this under review," she said. "You'll receive a written decision within 10 business days." As they left, Rosa leaned close to that table and left one last question hanging in the air. "Why was it easier?" she asked, her voice still soft but sharp as glass. "To believe a black boy stole some words than to believe he could write them." No one had an answer ready, but the question stayed. The wait was worse than any test Jaden had ever taken. Days crawled by, marked only by bus rides, reheated dinners, and the heavy silence between hope and fear. Some kids at school whispered when he walked past. Someone had posted, "Cheater got his granny to fight his battles," under a photo of him giving his history presentation. Another kid, a quiet girl from his biology class, slipped a sticky note into his notebook that said, "I believe you." Those 4 words carried him more than he let on. Track practice felt different too. Coach pulled him aside one day, his voice low. "I'm in your corner, Carter," he said. "Colleges look at more than one grade. Keep your head up." But Jaden knew the scholarship board wasn't going to be so kind. Every night, Rosa made tea and prayed out loud in the living room, calling on God and all their ancestors by name. On the 9th day, the letter came in a plain white envelope from the district office. The paper shook in Jaden's hands as he opened it at the kitchen table with Rosa watching. "Dear Mr. Carter," he read, after review of the evidence presented. "The committee has determined that there is insufficient proof of academic dishonesty in regard to your AP US History project. Your original grade has been changed from F to A. The record of the academic dishonesty charge has been removed from your file." He swallowed hard, blinking fast. "They changed it," he said. "Grandma, they changed it." Rosa nodded once, a single tear sliding down her cheek. "Good," she said. "That's the start." At the bottom of the letter was one more line. "Additionally, concerns have been raised regarding grading disparities in AP US history. A separate investigation will be conducted." That meant they had seen more than just him. Still, something twisted in Jaden's chest. "Everybody at school already think I'm a cheater," he said. "They don't see no letter. They just remember Mr. Whitman saying I stole that paper." Rosa picked up the page, read it again, then folded it with care. "Then we don't just fix this in private," she said. "We fix it in the light." 2 weeks later, the school board met in the big auditorium, the same place where they did talent shows and winter concerts. This time, instead of kids with violins, there were rows of folding chairs filled with parents, teachers, and students. On the stage sat the board members, the superintendent, and, off to one side, Mr. Whitman, in his usual neat blazer, looking smaller under the bright lights. Reporters with cameras stood along the back wall. Word had gotten out, thanks to a local black newspaper Rosa had called, that a grandma from Eastwood had taken on the rich teacher at North Ridge. On the agenda, somewhere between budget review and new parking lot proposal, was a line that read, "Public comment, great appeal, concern," when it was their turn. Rosa walked to the mic in her best navy dress, carrying the same old box. Her knees ached, but you'd never know it from the way she moved. "My name is Dr. Rosa Louise Carter," she said, her voice ringing clear in the big room. "I live in Eastwood. My grandson goes to your school. Some of you know our story now. Some of you don't. But I'm here for all the kids like him who have been told. Kids like you don't write papers like this." A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. She did not rehash every detail. She didn't have to. She just held up the booklet, the tape, and the letter from the district, and said, "We brought proof. The system worked this time, after we pushed hard. I'm thankful. But it should not take a grandma with a box of receipts and a PhD to get a fair shake." Then she stepped back. The board president cleared her throat. "Mr. Whitman has requested to make a statement," she said. He walked to the mic, his face pale. For the first time, he did not look like the man with all the answers. "I became a teacher because I believe in education," he began. "But in this case, I let my own ideas about who is likely to do high-level work cloud my judgment." He paused, swallowing. "When I saw Jaden's paper, I did not believe a black boy from Eastwood could have written it without cheating. I would not have said that out loud, but it was there inside me. That was wrong." A hush fell over the room. "I'm sorry, Jaden," he said, turning to where Jaden sat with Rosa. "I failed you." The apology did not erase what had happened, but it landed like a stone in a still pond, sending ripples out. Some teachers in the back shifted in their seats. A couple of students looked down, like maybe they had thought the same thing once. The board president announced new training on bias and a review of advanced class access. It sounded like small steps, but Jaden felt something heavy ease off his shoulders. Rosa squeezed his hand without looking at him, her eyes on the stage, already thinking about the next battle, but also, for once, letting herself breathe by spring. The snow had melted off the cracked sidewalks in Eastwood, leaving little rivers running down the gutters. On a bright afternoon, the whole school packed into the gym for senior awards night. Folding chairs filled the floor, and parents crowded the bleachers, fanning themselves with programs printed on cheap paper. Jaden sat in the front row of seniors in his borrowed tie and his one pair of good shoes. His stomach fluttered, but this time, it was the good kind of nerves. When they called his name for the city's scholarship, the one that would pay most of his way to Ohio State, he walked up to the stage with his back straight, the echo of his steps loud in his own ears. He looked out and saw Grandma in the third row, wearing the same navy dress from the board meeting, her hair pressed, her smile so wide it seemed to light the room. Next to her sat Ms. Alvarez and Ms. Kim from the library, clapping like he was their own. Even Mr. Whitman was there, off to the side with the other teachers, his hands coming together slow but steady. After the ceremony, someone snapped a photo of Rosa hugging Jaden with his certificate between them. His cap tilted back, her eyes closed in thanks. That picture would later hang in their living room, right next to Granddad's old army photo and Rosa's faded faculty ID, 3 stories in one frame. On the walk home, the evening air soft around them, Jaden bumped shoulders with his grandma. "Thank you," he said, quietly, "for believing me, for fighting. You didn't have to go that hard." Rosa chuckled, her arm linked through his. "Baby, I told you," she said. "When they come for my babies with lies, I come back with proof." He thought about all the papers and tapes and drafts, but also about the way she had looked those people in the eye and refused to bend. "One day I'm gonna make it so you don't have to fight so hard," he said. "I'ma be the one in the suit calling the shots." Rosa smiled at him, proud and tired, and full of something that looked a lot like joy. "Good," she said. "Just remember what we learned in all this mess." And as they stepped up onto their crooked front porch, with his future tucked safe in the envelope under his arm, and her keys jingling in her hand, the lesson that would guide him for the rest of his life rang clear in both their hearts. Never let someone with power over a grade have the last word over your worth. When you have the truth and the courage to stand up for it,